I took the night security job because it paid well and asked very little of me. Sit alone, watch cameras, stay awake. The industrial complex had been abandoned for years, but the owners insisted on overnight coverage. On my first night, my supervisor handed me a laminated sheet of rules and told me, very seriously, to follow them exactly. There was something in his eyes that suggested he wanted to say more, but didn't. I didn't read the rules right away. I wish I had. The security booth was a glass box surrounded by buzzing floodlights, sitting at the edge of the property like a forgotten checkpoint. Inside was a desk, a chair, a logbook, and the clipboard holding the rules. The camera feeds showed empty hallways, collapsed ceilings, and long stretches of concrete that hadn't seen people in years. Near midnight, I finally picked up the clipboard. The air felt heavy as I started reading, like the building itself was paying attention. The rules started off strange but manageable. Don't leave the booth between certain hours. Don't look outside if I hear footsteps. Log any light flickers. They sounded like superstition layered on top of common sense. Then I reached a rule that made my stomach tighten. If I saw someone on camera 4 after 1:30 a.m., I was to shut the monitor off immediately. No explanation. No instructions beyond that. Camera 4 faced the central warehouse. It was sealed shut, chained and padlocked, and supposedly empty. I checked the feed. Nothing there. Just darkness and dust. At 1:27 a.m., the lights in the booth flickered once. I logged it. When I looked back at the clipboard, I noticed something subtle but impossible. The rules page was thicker than before. I flipped the sheet over. New rules had appeared on the back, printed darker than the rest. One of them said that if I was reading it before 2 a.m., I was already being observed. I told myself it was a prank. Someone trying to scare the new guy. Still, my eyes kept drifting back to the cameras at 1:31 a.m., camera 4 changed without warning. A figure stood just inside the warehouse, not facing the camera, frozen mid-motion. I remembered the rule and shut the monitor off instantly. That was when I noticed the breathing. It was faint and steady, like it was coming from everywhere at once. Not close. Not far. Just present. I locked the booth door even though it already was. When I checked the rules again, a new one had appeared. I was instructed not to acknowledge the breathing. So I didn't. I sat still and waited. The sound eventually faded. I logged everything. At 2:05 a.m., I noticed one camera's timestamp didn't match the others. When I checked the clipboard, there was a rule warning me not to fix the time. That's when I realized the rules weren't preventive. They were responsive. Morning came without relief. I went home exhausted, trying to convince myself it had all been stress. When I returned the next night, the clipboard was new. Some rules were missing. Rule 7 was gone. At midnight, the lights flickered twice. I logged it. Then I noticed something written in the logbook already, an entry in my handwriting describing an event that hadn't happened yet. It said I would hear knocking at 1:44 a.m. At exactly 1:44, someone knocked on the booth window. Slow. Careful. Almost polite. I stared at the desk and didn't look up. When it stopped, my hands were shaking. A new rule had appeared. It said the thing watching me learned faster when I was afraid. That was the moment I understood I wasn't being protected. I was being studied. Each night after that, the rules changed more often. Sometimes they contradicted each other. Sometimes they vanished entirely. The building responded to my choices, not my obedience. I started to feel like part of an experiment. Camera 4 turned on by itself one night. The figure was closer now, its shape clearer but still wrong. It tilted its head like it was learning how. A new rule appeared, saying it knew I preferred certainty. That was when I stopped following every rule. Carefully. Methodically. Some consequences were immediate. Others were delayed. A few never came. The rules adapted. One night, the clipboard was blank. The cameras showed static. The lights went out. Then a single rule appeared, telling me to write the rules myself. My hand moved without permission. I wrote rules meant to protect me. Distance. Hesitation. Boundaries. The building responded immediately. The footsteps stopped. The breathing faded for the first time. The night passed quietly. In the morning, the clipboard was gone. Management claimed nothing unusual had ever happened. The logbook was mostly blank, except for one line I didn't remember writing. "You're not the first to write." I stayed. The rules returned, shorter now. Politer. Almost considerate. That frightened me more than the others. The new rules said to answer questions honestly. The questions didn't come aloud. They appeared in my thoughts. It asked why I was afraid. I didn't answer. The next night, a door appeared on one of the camera feeds where there had never been one before. It stayed closed. A rule formed slowly, warning that silence was also an answer. The door opened inward. Something watched. That's when I understood. The rules weren't changing randomly. They were refining themselves. When I tried to quit, the exit gate wouldn't open. The radio played recordings of my own voice reading the rules aloud. I stopped trying after that. One night, I found a rule written in handwriting that wasn't mine. It told me to be kind when I was replaced. I see the figure clearly now. It looks almost right. Almost finished. It watches me work, learning how to hesitate, how to obey, how to adapt. The rules have stopped changing. I think that means I'm done. A new guard arrives at dawn. A fresh clipboard waits on the desk. The first rule is already written. The rules tell me to sit in the booth. Watch the cameras.